Even to all in the absence of our chair, that phone call, he's doing better and better each day. So I will call our public hearing meeting to order. You mute your phone or turn your volume down or turn mine down. Yeah, turn that so it will not be a distraction. Next on the agenda, we'll pledge allegiance to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'd like to thank all that came out tonight for this public hearing. And the public hearing is for our community to give us information that we might listen to. We're not to answer that question or get in conversation with them, but just listen. And maybe our county administrator or the chair will get back with that individual. So now our public hearing is now open for comment from the public. If there are any, Mr. Carter, there anyone that signed up to speak?
No one has signed up to speak, and we received no comments via email or anything else this last week.
Okay, we will wait a few minutes just in case someone is on their way. We'll wait probably 3 minutes.
Well, I can ask one question. Are we incorporating the gas prices that continue to go up, and that they're talking about $5.50, $6 a gallon? Is that incorporated in our budget?
Not
That kind of increase?
No.
Not that high, sir. We looked at what gas prices were back in the February, March timeframe, which were the highest we'd seen so far. And that's where we kind of put our gas prices based upon those numbers that we were seeing the departments use at that time. I don't think anyone could sit there and say, has a crystal ball, know exactly where it's going to end up at. Hopefully, it's going to level back out. But
For everybody's sake.
This budget year?
I also, we don't know. And if it continues to go up, no, we don't have enough money in the budget for everybody's fuel. I can tell you that up front, just because of the prices. But we have to make an estimate based upon what we see at the time. Where it's kind of going, it leveled out back in February was the high point, kind of started coming back down in March. So that's why we're using those as our numbers. They were the highest we'd seen.
Of course, it'll affect propane and everything else.
Double, yeah. Well, we can start letting y'all have maybe some battery-powered bicycles.
We can ride around on the scooters. That'd be
Too
okay,
slow.
right?
Them little battery-operated scooters for boys and here.
Yeah, if you were in Boynton, it'd be all right.
I don't know what that-
After that, it's going
The
to
land
be
that long. Bad power was cute. That thing break down.
Better get the monster truck grave, they could go down Old Cox
I
Road.
said, if
One
we gotta
more
take a
minute.
scooter on Old
Gotta give
Cox, it's
time
gonna
to
be
do
We're going
rough.
to have some alternated tires on that scooter on Old Cox, okay?
What's that long-term, what's the plan time-wise on that?
Tommy was by today. They hope to finish with all the pipes this week. They have been pulling the ditches. They had a couple of crews from Camp 4 out there over the last 2 weeks. They're working to help pull the ditches and clean out around all the pipes. They expect mid-June to have the guy in there with the soil cement company. They'll start in there and then coming right behind that with asphalt.
Okay, so they ripping all that up and putting down new base and everything?
The machine grinds up everything.
Oh, okay.
So it'll grind up the rocks, asphalt, everything, and the dirt. Mix it in with cement about 8 inches deep, and add water to it. It'll settle.
Our public hearing now is officially closed. We thank all those that participated. And we'll prepare for May the 25th, that we'll meet back here at 7 p.m. to vote on the budget. Our 22-23 budget.
Okay, can we talk about things while we're here or not?
On basis of public hearing, we have other matter to discuss. Is it something important?
Wayne, when we say we are revenue neutral, and I think me and you talked the other day, and you said that what we were taking in this year is like 100 point, what?
8, 9 or something.
All right, what does it, versus last year to this year, what does that 8, 9 it represent in dollars, roughly?
Well, if you look at a penny bringing, we had this discussion beforehand, a penny brings you $500,000, so it'd be under $500,000.
Is it,
So that's equal to a penny, that 1 point would be, if it was like 100.1, that'd be equal to a penny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So what the law says is, you take the reassessment from 2 years ago, the total value. You'll take then what your net, you take the reassessment from now. You deduct out the growth you've had over those past 2 years because that's not any new construction, things of that nature. So new construction gets deducted out of your new figure, and you take your new figure divided by your old figure, is 101% or less. It's the state law. They don't try to get you even because you'd end up with numbers like 39.52 or something like that. So that's why they have the 101% is what is considered.
well, is this budget that we've done, in which, commend y'all on every year, doing a outstanding job with the budget. But is this budget so tight that we couldn't have went to 39 instead of 40?
No, but y'all said revenue neutral, and that was what revenue neutral was. We'll actually lose money, we actually would lose a little bit if we went down to 39.
So is this budget that we've done that tight that we can probably handle that?
Well, then you'll just have to take money from either your new elementary school funding or from money you've got set aside for rescue next year.
But the last, say, 4 or 5 years, 6 years or whatever, I mean, I don't need to know a figure, but hadn't we been, somewhat had a surplus,
Yes, sir.
a pretty good one?
Yes, sir.
I mean, do you foresee that our growth is gonna be somewhat less?
I am
It don't
concerned
say it
with-
had to be more, but do you foresee it being a lot less?
I think after this year, we've tightened up a lot of the income numbers that we had in the past, which led to those surpluses. And we use those numbers in the budget. The reality is that's up to you all. If y'all want to make it 39, that's not a staff's recommendation. That's a board's decision.
I mean, I just, my point of view is looking at it, because we say revenue neutral, I mean, and I've had a few phone calls, not a lot and stuff, but, from when we got these new assessments and, I mean, I told everybody we're going from 42 to 40 and said, well, we're not gonna have a tax increase. Well, I don't know, I figured up mine, I got a tax increase, and several other ones called me and they got a tax increase too, and stuff. And Ed was very nice. He called me this week, and we talked about that a little bit. And I think he said, and maybe quote me if I'm wrong, he said something about that the reason that some went up, some paying more or whatever, that I think what he said was that like any new homes, any building or anything at Microsoft in the last 2 years, you could not go up on their assessment. Is that sound right, or is that?
Any industrial building actually depreciates in value. Theirs don't increase.
But I'm talking like homes and stuff like that. Does the new homes built over the last 2 years, I thought it said that they couldn't go up on their value. So they would go from being 42, they may be down to 40, so they would be paying a lesser tax. So maybe that's why maybe I had to pay more because some of theirs went down or something. I'm not really, I can live with that.
That's an Ed question. That's
Right.
something I
and
don't
talk.
know.
But, I just think our citizens, we've been real lucky, very fortunate, and I look at the people that we represent here as a board of supervisors, we the voice for them is, just talking about these gas prices, $5. I mean, food, everything has gone up, that's just my thing. I think if we could, and I really believe we could, if we went to 39 cents, on that. But that's me speaking, but like I say, it's tough out there right now, and we just did this car tax, which, whether, it's not intentional, but we just did that, and we went up on things, and, we kind of going up kind of almost reminds me, and we had to find something to do with it. But then, you got like, you look at all these gas prices up, and somebody like Shell, I saw their first 3 months of this year, they had the best profits they've had in, really. And, I think as a county, we don't need no more than we really have to with the situation with everybody's in right now. But I think that's just my opinion.
Again, so that's a board decision. As you said, would have to take money from one of those two categories that I mentioned previously.
How much money would it be, Wayne? I mean, you're talking about,
A penny should
well, we
approximately-
talking about 500,000.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, what, on reassessment, back 20, 25 years ago, did we not look at every piece of property? Somebody was looking at every piece of property and assessing it. Am I right on that?
No, they never did. When we
They were
did,
looking at a big percentage though.
the
Not,
only time it was ever done was when the first time the county did it in-house. And that's the only time it's ever been done. Because we did not have good records. People had added on to buildings, et cetera, over the years, and changed and remodeled and et cetera, and didn't get permits. So actually, Billy Nick hired a group, it's about 10 guys.
I remember something about that.
And they would go out every week.
I don't think I was here then.
No, so it was in the late 90s. They went out every week, all over, and you didn't do
Remember
like
that.
one area, you went all over the county.
Similar.
And they had meetings every Monday going over how they were appraising things, whether this was Class A construction, B, C, D. Came up with their figures so that everybody would be on the same page. And you wouldn't have one assessor doing one area. Before that, we had a private company that did it every 6 years. And again, they just looked at sales and that was it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hey, what is
so
it-
that's the only time we've ever gone out and done every property.
Yeah, how much, what's the process now? I mean, is it physically looked at? Is it computer generated? Oh,
Most of it's computer generated. They look at sales. They do go out and look at some of the properties, but you can't look at 30-some thousand properties.
well, and I completely get that,
So
but
it is based upon sales and what we have in the book showing new construction and whether your house is an A, B, C, or D, whether it's on a state road, whether it's on a hard surface road, a gravel road, is it on a private drive, is it on, so they look at many different factors that go into it. It's not just, well, you've got a house and it's all graded that. So all those things go into an algorithm that comes up with what.
yeah, I've looked at some of that stuff and one particular property that I do not own, and it's just random, pulled it out. It's 390 acres. It's forest land. It's all forest land. It was cut over, and it went up $120,000. Know why?
I can't tell you, sir. That's a question that person has to ask Ed. The way the system is set up, they can then appeal their assessment to the commission.
Well, from my understanding that it's a kind of rule that the landowner gets in touch with the commissioner's office or whatever if the timber's been cut and that kind of thing. Am I right on that? 'Cause I've actually done it.
I have no idea, sir.
But I mean, if that's a rule and people don't know about it, then certainly their property is going to go up. When we advertise this budget, we need to advertise that kind of information.
Again, if someone doesn't like their assessment, we tell them, it says in there to contact the commissioner's office on the reassessment. It tells you to contact them if you have any questions. So.
I looked up 12 random properties, 100 to 400 acres. None of them mine. All of them went up anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 in value, and one of them came down $40,000. I mean, it sounds like to me the ag land is maybe disproportionately targeted here. I don't know why.
That's a commissioner's question. It's not my job, so I don't have anything to do with it.
Well, I mean, if it went up, was 3,300 acres, it went up $1 million in value. That meant to stay revenue neutral, some more property had to come down $1 million in value.
Well,
And I couldn't find them.
I've got some-
And I'm
this
just
time I'm talking about
randomly
land, but-
clicking these things.
Only 2 of mine went up after I applied the 40 cent to them, and the rest of them went down. So I mean, there's some balance there.
I mean, I'm not complaining
The cheaper
about mine.
properties
These
seem
are
to
all, these properties are not mine.
Be lower.
Again, that's an Ed question, and you'd have to ask Ed.
Is Halifax doing the
Can we
same?
do that next
Are they
week?
making revenue neutral too?
No, Halifax kept their tax rate the same.
They did.
They reassessed and
I got
kept their
property there,
rate
too.
the same.
If you change this rate like David's talking about, then you have to re-advertise and all that. Am I right on that?
Not if you lower it.
Not if you lower it. Okay. Okay.
You have to re-advertise if you raise it.
Well, if the 0.8, it's, if 1% is 500,000 and then 1 cent is 500,000, we're not talking about cutting a $500,000 off. We're talking about maybe 150 or so, wouldn't we?
We're not gonna have a .08.
Right, no, I don't want to have a
That's why the
0.08. But I'm just saying, we're not talking about $500,000 though.
Yes, you are. If you go from
take
40
a
to
cent.
39, it's 500,000.
If you take a cent, it's
Even,
On a penny, you're talking about the point eight.
The
He's
point.
talking about a penny. So it's two different things here, math-wise.
But the reality is, yes, that would only be a little bit of it. Let's say 75,000, because every 50,000 for every tenth of a point.
So let's look at it this way. Before next week, or maybe you can send us the information. How much revenue does the 100 bring in, and how much revenue does the 100.8 bring in? It's just math.
I understand, but I'm not seeing anyone do a 39.8 rate. It's
No,
either-
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, you said the revenue, the reassessment, when we went revenue neutral, it was the
under
the revenue was 100.8, and it can be,
approximately.
okay.
The true.
So if
effect-
it was 100, exactly 100, what would that revenue be versus the 100.8?
That's going to be an odd number again.
I mean, it's dollars. It's
So we
not,
just
it's
asking
not
for
a
a
tax
fix-
rate.
just-
This is not the tax rate I'm talking about.
Just asking
I'm
for a
talking
figure.
about the total revenue from the taxes. Okay, that's all.
Well, the second question would be, are you willing to cut back on the money setting aside for the elementary school or from rescue squads? I mean,
I would be really hard pressed to think that we would have to do that.
Well-
With what we've carried over for the last 10 years, I mean, it's been pretty significant amount of money. We're not talking about $1,000 here that we've been.
Wayne's been
Cur-
selling us on this the last 2 or 3 months about that. We got some major costs coming up, and
And we increased,
Yeah, we
one of the things
do.
we did, David, was
School.
we increased all of our revenues to cut back on having as much surplus at the end of the year.
Let me ask you this, Wayne, is it any way you can break down from the reassessment information, the styles of property in the county that went up and came down? Or is it all it's all kind of random?
That's an Ed thing.
I realize that's a commissioner question, but can it be done?
I have no idea.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. Can it be
No
done?
idea. I wouldn't hazard a guess.
And I'm what David said about, a house that's been built in the last 2 years, that value would be the value the person paid for the house, and that wouldn't go up. I'm not advocating that it should go up. I'm just saying it doesn't. Is that a rule? I don't know.
Again,
You know,
sir, I have nothing to do with reassessment.
Yeah,
And I tried to tell you, and I know nothing about it.
I realize that it's our job to gather information.
Correct.
Because we got answer to the taxpayers, and that's what I'm doing.
Commissioner is at a class in Richmond, that's why he's
That's
not
fine.
here.
We can get all this before next Wednesday night.
And I understood it's not like a piece of property that you bought, it's a piece of, maybe you built a new house.
If you built a new house, and let's say it valued when you built it at 200,000, then it stays at that 200,000 from what.
That's what I understood. Ed told me the other
What
day.
Ed had told David. I don't know.
I have no idea.
I'm just curious about that.
I just,
Because I know some new houses that have gone up in that 2-year period. So,
I mean, like I said, asking for the 39, like I said, I know roughly what our surplus has been for the last few years, and like I said, we're not talking about a little bit of money. And like I say, when I say that, I just don't just say, well, we're gonna take that out to school fund or something like that. I mean, we've been on this budget finance committee meetings and stuff like that, and we roll 200,000 or 300,000 in just about every meeting, or something comes up new, and we just
Bam.
We pop right on, you know, and then when we talk about giving back 500,000 to the citizens, well, it just ain't here. I don't get that. And like I say, no disrespect to anybody, but I don't think our budget is that tight.
I'm not against the budget, don't get me wrong. I think
Me neither.
everything that was in it was well-founded. Y'all did an
Need to
excellent
stay.
job putting it together. I think the employees deserve the raises they get. But the reassessment, I haven't got my arms around the reassessment. It's, could be, and I'm going to be real careful with the language, could be some subjectivity in it. Could be.
Again, we gave you what we thought were realistic income numbers. You have two sets of surpluses. Staff's recommendation would be that you take money from either one of those surpluses. I don't know that we missed, that we can go back and find another $500,000 just laying around per se. We increased sales tax 1.1 million. So that's part of that money every year. We increased some other ones, several hundred thousand, from 30,000 to 50,000 to 100,000. So we've gone through, because we didn't change numbers during the pandemic. I don't think really anybody did that I've heard of. So we are looking at, those numbers have steadily increased over the last 3 years. That this is the third budget, so that's why we increased those income numbers.
Well, and I realize that, you know, when the car tax thing, and we all made a decision that we were going to keep that $1 million and, you know, not do anything about that because it had gone too far. So maybe this is somewhat of a slight compromise. Not to everybody, for sure. It's a different group of constituents out there that go up and down.
Any other comments? Concerning, shut up, phone.
Didn't you tell everybody not to turn the phone on?
Yeah, my damn was making a noise every now and then. Just my comment is, if we look at the future, if we lower the taxes, people cannot believe that we're doing as much as we are with the new schools, anticipating redoing the elementary school, and then to utilize that money important to put it back safe, because I don't think we're going to get an increase like this for the next couple of years. People like for it to come down. Once you start raising, they forget all about the good years when it was down to 40 cents, or down to 39 cents. And to raise it, that would be kind of issue that people look at and scorn us for raising this. It's fun to lower it. I think with the budget like it is, how tight it is, looking at the future, I think we've made a good decision with 40 cents. I know the citizens would like to see it lower. I would like to see mine lower. Some of my property went up quite a bit. I did when the why. But I think as a whole, I think a good decision has been made concerning looking at the numbers for this year and anticipate next year. I'm pretty sure if we could see next year, we'd be happier, but we cannot see next year, and those things are tight. I don't like stopping at a gas station now. Don't like going to the grocery store either like I used to,
Well,
but I have to.
in Spain, I tell people, you know, I run into people all the time that complain. I said, y'all need to go away and then come back.
Yeah.
To realize how good we got it in this county and what the tax rates are. You know, the value of properties are lower, the tax rate's lower. I mean, it's just, you know, a great place to live, and I don't know how we compare to all the other counties in the state, but I'm sure we're at one of the lower rates, I would think, aren't we? So, you know, we need to take some pride in that, and we can sell that to the people, you know, that, you know, we're doing our best, and we're really doing it with less. You know, we could have a board that just spent money left and right, but we're very conservative here, and I think we make good decisions. I'm all for revenue neutral. Now, granted, I understand Mr. Solomon's thing. You know, if I got a big piece of property and it's went up $100,000, I'd be down there talking too. You know, and that's that's the avenue they need to take. But like I said, my personal stuff, I had 3 or 4 properties go down, actually, when I did the 40s, not much, but a little bit, and I had 2 properties go up, so I figured that was a wash, kind of. So that's the way I looked at it.
I'd like to chime in a little bit as well. You know, everybody's got different properties and do different things, but I'm kind of along, I don't know if different ones such as ag, as he was discussing, was different, but hardly any of ours went down at all. Most of them had a pretty good jump. And I don't understand, I mean, and here's another point I'd like to make. I feel like there's a disconnect between the constituents and how this is figured. I think they don't understand it to a degree. I'm sure there's plenty to do, but I've had a lot of calls that they just don't understand. They think we made the decision to do all this. And, you know, I've explained the best that I can, but I think there's a disconnect between, you know, the formula and what we can do. And I don't know what the answer is to get that out, because I know it is, you know, complex. But, you know, that's something maybe we could look at going forward. I don't know the right route with that, but, you know.
I'm not sure either, sir, because I mean, he's taking sales, okay? Just like an appraiser does if they do your house separately. They're taking comp sales. He's trying to take that from a smaller set and broaden it out to try to cover 30-some thousand properties. That's about as much as I know about it. I do know that they have different rankings in the system. They use an algorithm that comes up with, and they rank the properties. And as you said, Jim, somebody here that's cut over, then they need to call them up and tell them. And
Well, I think, yeah, and I agree with you there, that that's the way the rule works.
Yeah.
But, you know, we need, when you advertise the budget, you know, put that down there in print. You know, if your property has changed in any way, contact the commissioner's office.
the reality is we only reassess every other year, okay?
Right.
We never have people call us when they build on or put an addition on, don't get a building permit. They usually, just being honest.
I completely get it. I
The
do.
people who's got it lowered probably didn't raise it as much, or their tax rate is lower.
don't call.
Probably are not calling up going, oh, you lowered my rates. But Ed's has a program, and they do that. We don't have any, from the administration side, we don't, just like you all, don't have anything to do with it. But I mean.
When you
ultimately,
look at
David,
that-
if you do just drop a rate, it's $500,000.
When you look at that property, it says year built and year, effective year. What is that? That's on a new house. What does that mean? Sandra, you may know. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying to find out, because I don't know, and I should know. And that's a lot of people that don't know.
You have to ask the commission.
Year built and effective year. That's what's on that tax thing. And the effective year is when that property or house, these houses I'm talking about, starts getting taxed.
I have no idea, sir.
Okay, because sometimes the years may be off one year,
Again,
if you look at the site.
Right.
So,
I have
and
no
I
idea.
just want to know what it is. I want to know.
It could be, I'm just conjecturing because I don't know exactly what you're talking about. Is that when they got their building permit or when they got their?
Probably one is when they got their
C of O?
building permit, and one is when they got their occupancy
Right, C of O,
permit.
which that's-
That was my guess, but I
That'd be
do not
mine
know.
too. Not knowing what you're talking about, but that'd be my guess. We don't do a partial assessment. We do an assessment as of July 1, and whether it's C of O or not. is an
January
issue,
1.
Correct.
Yeah, but we do, like Ed does, do supplements.
Supplements.
Yeah, there's some partials on there
Right, but those are supplements for certain
on
amounts.
larger properties.
Well, you know what, these notices, I mean, we run into with the car tax and stuff, notices have to be centered by a certain time and all. It's just like these reappraisals notice had to be centered. But, we sent them, that would stop a few questions that we probably all get, is we had waited 2 weeks, could have possibly waited 2 weeks and sent them out. You sent them out with their reappraisal versus last year, but you still got 42 cents on both of them.
Yeah.
We wait 2 weeks and send them out with 40 cents on it, then they will be probably looked at a little bit different. That would cut in on a few phone calls.
Yeah, they were
But
sent out
then I
with
know
42.
everything has to be sent at a certain time and all, but
Again, I don't have anything to do with that either. I'm guessing that's because your current rate is 42 for this year to the end of June. You would have to adopt a new rate for it to go into effect for the new year.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
I
It's a
understand.
shame we couldn't have waited until that's happened and then send them out with the 40 on it.
Oh, I looked at it too, and it shows the 42, and I
Yeah.
agree with you, sir. That's a misnomer because people were saying, well, you didn't lower my taxes.
Yeah.
You kept them the same.
I can
Well,
tell you, I-
that's,
they have to know
but
that.
that's, now, why he does it that way, I can't tell you, sir. On reassessment. That, again, is a commissioner question.
The only comment I have, I think I would have a little bit of concern about changing it from the 40 to the 39, just is this a tax issue or is this an assessment
This
issue?
is an assessment issue.
Because to me, if that's the case, anybody that has a issue with it needs to contact Ed's office, because if all of them decide to come and appeal their rate or their assessment, and then he ends up dropping it, whatever, for all of those, and we drop the tax too, then we're losing twice. Versus if he goes and says, okay, I think this is overvalued, and Ed agrees and says, okay, I'll drop it. Maybe that.
Right.
Right, but when the person comes in, they have to show how their evaluation's off. They can't just say,
Do they show it with comparable properties around them?
or comparable properties. I mean, it's hard to always find a house similar to yours within 2 miles.
Yeah, well, I get that.
But you've got to find, for them, and it's the same thing with the Board of Equalization. You can't just come up and say, my property's not worth this. Okay, show us why it's not worth this. That's the first question they've asked, because I've had some of them tell me that have been on the Board of Equalization, that we ask you, why isn't your property worth it? Show us sales, or show us reasons why it's not worth this value. And that's what the person has to do.
And conservation easement property, it'll go down one assessment and then it'll go
I
right
have
back
no
up.
idea.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's real.
And I think a question to ask Ed too would the development of some of this open / farmland with solar farms, has that affected the values of it any? Because the land is selling for more and they're not making any more of it. So I don't doubt that anywhere in the United States, the land value is not going up.
Yeah, and the way our ordinance is, Tom and I had mentioned this, that if we've got a solar farm right here, and then we can't have another solar farm within 2 miles, I believe, of that property, have we automatically devalued some of that property right around that solar farm because people may not want to be near the solar farm? You can't sell that property for another solar farm. So,
That's an Ed question. It's like I had someone.
and I haven't looked at any of that property, so
Who said,
for the record.
You can't use adjoining property owners because they're always going to pay more money than the next person. Yes, you can. Honestly, the only property sales that are not used are auctions. If property is sold at auction, it is not considered an arm's length deal, and those are not counted. And I believe also if the bank forecloses on it and then they sell it, those are not also considered arm's length deal, because that is considered basically a fire sale. They've got to get it off their books. But other than that, they look at all sales.
But, through the reassessment though, I think it's unfair to say revenue neutral, because it is for some people and it's not for other people. So I don't know how we need to rebrand that, but some people are going to get a tax increase because of reassessment, not because we raise taxes, but because of reassessment.
I think you said it best one time a long time ago. It's a resetting of the bar.
Yeah, it
The
is.
reality is, what the state looks at is the total valuation for an entire county, town, city, whatever. That total evaluation is what they're looking at as that reassessment. They know there's always going to be things going up and down. But that's just, for lack of a better word, like car sales. Vehicles, when gas is cheap, four-wheel drives and SUVs, values go up. Okay? When gas gets high, economical cars have held their values, and we've seen some dropping in the SUVs and four-wheel drives. So it's like that with everything, sir. I mean, it's, as you said, it's just a resetting to come
Well,
back
it's
to us.
supposedly, in theory, it's supposed to get everybody on the same page and equal. But I don't know if it does.
Supposed
or
to.
not.
I don't know that you can ever do that exactly.
That's
the way it's saying.
what it's meant to do.
Correct. That is what it's meant to do. But it's just like if you are selling your house. If you've ever had an appraiser go out and appraise your property, he's going to find 3 properties that are going to assess so that you're going to be able to sell your house at what you're trying to sell it for. He's not going to find 3 that are going to make your house look like you're way over valued. Just being honest. I know that's not what their goal is or whatever, but you don't hear of too many people saying, yeah, the appraiser came out, he found comps that weren't even close to what my stuff was.
I guess the whole nutshell is here, if I found 12 properties that went up $1 million, what went down? That's what and that's a commissioner question, I realize that.
And
What
I
went
guess-
down? I want to know basically how much went up, how much went down.
Okay, but what was the value of those 12 properties prior to the $1 million increase? So was that a 10% increase, 20% increase, or 30%?
I didn't do the percentage or something.
So that's what you also have to look at. While they might have gone up $1 million, if they were worth 10 million before, then that's only 10% increase.
Yeah, because I know the reassessments
Only 10% increase.
have a percentage.
Well, I don't mean this wrong. I haven't seen any farmland selling for less money in the last 2 years.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's what it is.
It's what it is. So therefore, it's increasing in value because the sales are saying that. I'm just using that as an example. But if you're looking at that and you go, well, it's $1 million. Well, what was the value before, so that you can say, is that a 10% increase? Is it a 12%? Is it a 14%? I don't know. And
But what went down?
I have no idea. Again, you have to ask the commissioner, sir.
What property went down? I found one.
Somewhere some went down.
Somewhere, some went down.
I think these are good questions. I think a workshop could be in order one day, because to tell our constituents, to explain it to them, it's a little difficult for us. Jim said what went up, what went down. How can we explain that to a person when most of his property went up? And most people that mine went down, I just keep quiet and kind of speak about it. So maybe
no noise.
one day that we could have Ed to come to us and explain in detail concerning this process and why, so we can talk better when people give us a phone call and complain like I did to Mr. Brinkley, fuss and why, and we be able to explain it and then say we can or we cannot because of.
Well, I just think my point is, I think we just need to be, and it's no doubt we are conservative, and we are lucky that
Yes,
we
we
have a
are.
big industry here that's helping us and thing that, but we want to still be, I don't know what the right word is, but we don't want to spend no money more than we have to and stuff, and we don't want to tax them no more than that, even though we may be the lowest. That's really not an excuse if we can be lower or whatever. I just, at the end of the day, still, and like I say, Mr. Carter and them do a great job of our budget, but I know my thinking and the numbers I remember looking at, our budget hadn't been that tight that when I brought this up, that we may have to take money from this or money from that. I think money is there. Money has been there for the last 5 or 6 years that we can handle it, So, I mean, I'm not saying we do or don't, but I'm just saying, I don't think our budget is that tight. We are very fortunate,
Yes, we
very
are.
blessed that it is, but we're not working on that tight a budget. Not this county. We are, like I say, very fortunate. I'll be quiet. I think Mr. Lundy wanted to go home 30 minutes ago.
Any other question, comments off on the board as we discuss the budget?
We could be in depression next year.
We hope not.
Then you got, the budget might be thrown out the window.
No, we don't know.
Do what you gotta do.
Then there are no more question or concern. Then I declare this meeting to recess until the 25th, that we look at the budget.